Tom sat in the dust of the campyard, his wrists bound by heavy iron chains. The air was dry and bitter, filled with the smell of smoke and rust. Around him, other humans moved slowly, carrying crates and dragging heavy carts for their alien masters. The guards, tall and rough-skinned creatures, called the Drask, stood with whips of crackling energy. Their armor was dark, their faces full of sharp ridges, their eyes glowed faint red. Tom had been here for months, maybe longer. He had lost count of the days after the first few weeks. Time in the camp stretched like a dull line, each sunrise bringing the same misery. He remembered the stars above his home on Earth, but now even the stars looked far away, hidden by the smoke and haze of the alien world every night. He dreamed of freedom, yet every morning he woke to the rattle of chains and the voice of a Drask shouting at him to move faster. His arms ached, his back burned, and his spirit weakened. He told himself to hold on, but the hope he once carried grew smaller each day. That evening, as the twin moons rose over the camp, Tom sat against a fence post with his head bowed. The others slept in rows inside cages, but Tom had been left outside, chained to a post as punishment for refusing to kneel when ordered. His ankles hurt from the iron cuffs. His lips were dry, his throat raw. He stared at the ground, wondering if this night would be his last. Then he heard something different. Not the heavy steps of Drask boots, not the rustling of tired humans, but the sound of hooves. The sound was light at first, like a distant echo. Then it grew louder, steady and strong, striking the dirt with rhythm. Tom raised his head. Through the dim firelight of the camp, he saw a shadow moving closer. It was not a Drask. It was taller, slimmer, and it carried itself with grace. The rider sat high upon a steed unlike any horse Tom had seen before. Its body glimmered like polished stone, its mane flowing with faint blue light. The creature's eyes burned bright silver, and every step it took sent a small ripple across the ground, as if the earth itself bowed beneath its hooves. The rider wore silver armor that shone faintly under the moons. A long cloak trailed behind, and in the rider's hands was a spear tipped with a crystal blade. The helmet had a crest shaped like a flowing wave. The guards noticed. 2 Drasks shouted and raised their weapons, pointing them at the rider. "Stop where you are," one growled in his harsh voice. The rider did not answer. Instead, the figure dismounted with slow precision. When the helmet was lifted, Tom saw a face both strange and striking. The skin was pale with a faint shimmer, the eyes deep green with vertical pupils. Her hair fell like strands of silver, shining under the moons. She was not human. Yet there was something about her gaze that felt alive with intent and fire. The Drask aimed, her whips and advanced. "You have no right here," the lead guard barked. "Leave or be broken." The alien woman gave no reply. She stepped forward, and the ground seemed to shift under her boots. She drew the spear, and in one motion faster than Tom's eyes could follow, she struck. The blade flashed, and the nearest guard fell, his weapon split in 2. The other guard roared, swinging wide, but she turned smoothly, striking his chest and sending him crashing into the dirt. The camp stirred in chaos. More Drask came running, their weapons glowing. Yet the woman stood calm, her silver hair moving in the wind. Her horse-like steed moved with her, stomping the earth and scattering sparks of light. Tom could not believe his eyes. He had seen humans try to fight the Drask before, and all had failed. But this warrior cut them down as if they were nothing more than shadows. Then she turned her gaze toward Tom. For a moment, he thought she would strike him too, but instead, she walked forward, her spear lowered, her steps steady. She stopped before him, looking down at the chains on his wrists. Her eyes softened, though her voice was clear and firm. "These bonds do not belong to you," she said. Tom stared at her, stunned. He tried to speak, but no words came. She lifted her spear, and with one strike, the blade cut through the iron. His chains fell to the ground, heavy and useless. Tom's arms shook as he brought his hands forward, free for the first time in months. The cuffs clattered, leaving red marks on his skin. The woman stepped back, giving him space. Her horse moved closer, lowering its head toward Tom as if greeting him. The creature's eyes met his, and he felt something strange inside, like a warm pulse, a connection deep beyond words. "Why?" Tom managed to whisper, his voice rough. "Why free me?" The woman studied him. Then she spoke, her words carrying weight. "You are not my prisoner. You are my rider." Tom blinked, unsure if he had heard right. Rider? He was no warrior, no soldier. He was just a man who had been dragged from his home and chained. "I do not understand," he said weakly. "You will," she replied. "The bond has chosen." More Drask shouted in the distance, their horns echoing through the camp. Fires lit, and the guards rushed to regroup. The woman looked toward the noise, then back at Tom. "Stand," she said firmly. "We leave now." Tom's body trembled with weakness. His legs felt like stone, yet something in her voice made him rise. The horse bent its legs, lowering itself for him. With hesitation, Tom placed his hand on the saddle. He felt warmth flow through his palm, spreading through his body like strength he had not felt in years. The woman climbed up behind him, her spear ready. "Hold the reins," she said. Tom's hands tightened around them. The horse's muscles shifted beneath him, live and powerful. The Drask guards charged, but the creature leaped forward with speed like lightning. Tom felt the wind cut across his face as the camp blurred past. He heard shouts and the crack of weapons, but none could touch them. The horse moved as if it knew every path, every shadow, and every opening. The woman fought behind him, her spear striking like light, each blow perfect and precise. Tom guided the reins without knowing how, yet somehow the creature responded as if it understood his thoughts. Together, they broke through the line of enemies and out into the night. The moons lit their path as they galloped across the barren land. Behind them, the camp grew smaller, the sounds of anger fading into the distance. For the first time in months, Tom breathed free air without the weight of chains. The wind filled his chest. The stars stretched wide above, and the beat of the horse's hooves matched the rhythm of his heart. He still did not understand who this woman was or why she had chosen him. But in that moment, he felt alive again. He felt something stronger than fear, something close to hope. The alien horsewoman rode with him into the dark horizon, and her words echoed in his mind. "You are my rider." The night stretched across the barren land, the two moons casting pale light over the sand and rock. Tom held tight to the reins as the alien steed carried him, and the warrior woman farther from the Drask camp. His heart still raced, each beat loud in his chest. He had never ridden such a creature, yet somehow the movements felt natural, as if the horse understood his balance and guided him along with ease. Behind him, the woman sat firm, her silver armor faintly glowing under the moons. Her long cloak streamed in the wind, and her spear rested across her lap, ready to strike if danger came again. Tom dared to glance back at her. Her green eyes were sharp, yet calm, as if she had expected everything that had just happened. He finally found his voice. "Who are you?" he asked, his words nearly stolen by the wind. She did not answer at once. The horse climbed a rocky hill before she spoke. "My name is Nira," she said simply. Tom turned the name over in his mind. It sounded smooth, foreign, but strong. He looked ahead, still struggling to believe what had just happened. "Why did you free me?" Nira's gaze stayed forward. "Because the bond called for it." "The bond?" Tom asked. "What bond?" "The bond between horsewoman and rider," Nira replied. Her voice carried a tone like stone, steady and certain. "My people do not fight alone. We are guided by riders who give us sight beyond battle. Without them, our strength is wasted. With them, we are complete." Tom shook his head. "I don't understand. I'm not a soldier. I don't know how to fight. I was chained in a camp. I'm no rider." "You are," she said firmly. "You only need to accept it." The horse crested the hill, and Tom's breath caught. Before him stretched a wide valley bathed in moonlight. Rivers of silver water cut through the land, and glowing plants lined the banks. Strange, winged creatures flew low, their feathers bright like fireflies. For the first time since he had been captured, Tom saw beauty again. Nira guided the horse down the slope, and Tom felt the cool air rise from the valley floor. They reached the riverbank, where the horse stopped to drink. Tom slid down carefully, his legs weak from months of chains. He nearly fell, but Nira's hand steadied him. Her grip was firm yet gentle, surprising him with warmth. "Sit," she said. Pointing to a flat rock near the water, Tom sat heavily, breathing hard. He looked at her again. "You said I am your rider? But how can you be so sure?" "Why me?" Nira crouched across from him, her green eyes studying him in silence. At last she answered, "Because when I saw you in chains, the bond stirred. My steed lowered its head to you. That is the sign. It chooses only once. If it accepts, then the rider is meant." Tom glanced at the horse, which stood calmly at the river. Its silver eyes glowed faintly as it lifted its head, water dripping from its mouth. The creature looked back at him, and for a brief moment Tom felt warmth again, as if their hearts beat in the same rhythm. He shivered, unsure if it was fear or something greater. "I don't think I can do this," Tom admitted. "I've been weak too long." Nira leaned forward, her voice softer now. "Weakness is not your truth. It is what chains made of you. The bond is not built on strength of body, but on will. Your people endure more than you know." Her words struck him, reminding him of the old stories he had once read on Earth. Stories of explorers who crossed oceans with little more than hope. Of farmers who worked through storms to feed their families. Of soldiers who stood firm, though the world seemed to fall around them. He had almost forgotten those tales, buried under the weight of the Drask chains. He lowered his eyes. "You really believe I can be your rider?" Nira nodded once. "I do not believe. I know." The fire in her gaze made it hard for him to argue, yet fear still clung to him. He was no hero, just a man who had been broken down. But something inside whispered that maybe she was right. Before he could answer, the horse lifted its head sharply. Its ears twitched, and its silver eyes narrowed. Nira rose at once, spear in hand. "What is it?" Tom asked, standing quickly. "Drask scouts," she said. "They tracked us." Tom's chest tightened. From across the valley, faint red lights glowed between the trees. The Drask were coming fast. Nira mounted her steed in one smooth motion. She held out her hand to Tom. "Now you choose," she said. "Stay and be taken again, or ride with me." Tom hesitated only a moment before grabbing her hand. She pulled him up behind her, but this time she pressed the reins into his hands. "You guide," she said. "What?" Tom's eyes widened. "I don't know how." "You do," she said firmly. "Trust the bond." The horse pawed the ground, eager to move. Tom swallowed hard, then pulled the reins left without thinking. The horse turned smoothly, facing a narrow path along the river. His heart pounded, but his hands moved as if guided by instinct. The Drask shouted, their red lights drawing closer. Tom tightened his grip and shouted, "Go." The horse leapt forward, racing down the riverbank. The speed nearly stole Tom's breath, but he leaned with the motion, guiding around rocks and roots. Arrows of red light shot past, striking the ground, but the horse swerved as if it knew where each one would fall. Nira fought from behind, her spear flashing like silver lightning. When a Drask leaped from the shadows, she struck it down with a single blow. But she never touched the reins, leaving the path fully to Tom. For the first time, Tom felt not like a prisoner, but like someone in control. His mind raced, and the horse followed every thought. He guided it into the trees, weaving through narrow gaps where the Drask could not follow. The creature leapt across a fallen log and splashed through shallow water, its hooves striking sparks with every step. By the time they reached the far side of the valley, the Drask had fallen behind. Their shouts faded into the distance. The horse slowed to a steady trot, breathing heavily but strong. Tom's chest heaved with breath, his body trembling with both fear and thrill. He looked at the reins in his hands, then at the glowing eyes of the horse. He had done it. Somehow he had truly guided it. Nira touched his shoulder. "You see now," she said, "you are not weak. You are a rider." Tom could not speak for a moment. His throat tightened, but not from fear. It was something else, something close to pride. A feeling he thought he had lost forever. They stopped at a clearing where Nira dismounted and signaled for Tom to join her. Together, they built a small fire from dry branches. As the flames rose, Tom sat across from her, still catching his breath. "Where are we going?" he asked. "To my people," Nira said. "To the Valoran stronghold. They must see the bond. They must see you." Tom frowned. "And if they don't accept me?" Her green eyes fixed on him. "Then we fight until they do." The firelight flickered between them, casting long shadows across the clearing. Tom stared into the flames, his heart caught between fear and hope. He still could not believe that a warrior from another world had broken his chains and claimed him as her rider. But tonight, when he had held the reins and guided the horse through danger, he had felt something awaken inside him. Maybe Nira was right. Maybe he was more than a prisoner. As the night deepened, the fire burned low. Nira kept her spear close, her eyes always on the shadows, while Tom leaned back against a tree, still holding the reins loosely in his hands. He thought of Earth, of the stars, and of the strange path his life had taken. For the first time in many months, he closed his eyes and did not dream of chains. He dreamed of riding. The sun rose bright over the valley, turning the sky gold and red. Tom awoke to the sound of rushing water and the steady steps of Nira's horse as it moved near the river. He rubbed his eyes, still unsure if the night before had been real. His wrists no longer carried the chains, yet the skin was marked with deep scars. He touched them and felt both pain and relief. Nira stood at the water's edge, her cloak drawn back, spear resting against a rock. Her silver hair caught the morning light. She looked calm, but her eyes watched the horizon carefully. Even in silence, she gave the impression of control, as if every movement had purpose. Tom pushed himself up and walked over. "Do we move now?" he asked. Nira gave him a small nod. "Yes, we ride to the stronghold. But before we arrive, you must learn." "Learn what?" Tom asked. "The bond," she said. "A rider is not only a guide. A rider sees, hears, and feels what the warrior cannot. Together, they become one mind. Without this, the bond is weak."
8.
"I told you before, I've never fought. I don't know how to be what you want." Her green eyes fixed on him, steady and sharp. "That is why you will train. Not to become like me, but to become yourself." She whistled, and the horse stepped forward. The creature lowered its head toward Tom, its silver eyes glowing faintly. Tom felt that same warmth again, like a heartbeat pressing against his chest. "Mount," Nira commanded. Tom hesitated, then swung himself up. The horse shifted under him, strong and sure. Nira climbed up behind him, placing her hands lightly on his shoulders. "Close your eyes," she said. "What?" Tom asked, confused. "Do it," she replied. He obeyed, shutting out the morning light. At first, all he heard was the sound of water and birds. Then slowly he felt something else. A faint pulse, steady and deep, echoing through his body. The rhythm was not his own heartbeat, yet it beat with his, blending until he could not tell where his pulse ended and the horse's began. "What is this?" he whispered. "The bond," Nira said softly. "Feel it, trust it. The steed gives you its strength, and you give it your will. This is how horsewoman and rider fight as one." Tom opened his eyes slowly. The horse's silver gaze met his, and he felt a strange certainty, as if the creature truly understood him. They spent hours that morning practicing. Nira had Tom guide the horse through narrow paths, across streams, and up rocky slopes. At first he stumbled, pulling the reins too hard or leaning the wrong way. But each mistake taught him, and the horse responded with patience, adjusting to his movements. By midday, Tom was able to guide it around obstacles with smoother turns. His body began to move with the animal. no longer fighting against it, but flowing with each step. You learn quickly, Nira said as they rested under a tall tree. Only because the horse makes it easy, Tom admitted. He reached forward to stroke its neck. The creature snorted softly, leaning into his hand. Nira watched with approval. The steed does not give trust freely. If it follows you, then the bond is true. Tom looked at her. What about your people? Will they accept me? Her face grew serious. Some will not. They believe only Valorans may ride. But the bond cannot be denied. When they see you, they will know. Tom nodded, though doubt still gnawed at him. He had seen the strength of the Valorans in Nira alone. What would they see in him? A thin man with scars from chains? He pushed the thought away and focused on the training. The next days passed in long hours of travel and practice. Nira taught him how to read the land, how to notice signs of movement in the grass, how to hear the distant echo of weapons before enemies came. She showed him signals used by riders and warriors in battle hand signs, short calls and touches that spoke without words. At night, they camped by rivers or in small caves, sharing firelight. Nira sharpened her spear while Tom cleaned the saddle or gathered wood. They spoke little, but when they did, Tom found himself listening closely. Her words were few but carried weight, each one shaped by certainty. One evening, as they sat by the fire, Tom asked, "Why do your people need riders at all?" "You are strong on your own," Nira looked into the flames. "Strength is not enough. In battle, the warrior fights with the body. The rider fights with the mind. Alone, each is blind. Together, they are whole." Tom thought about it. He remembered how she had fought in the camp, precise and unstoppable, while he had only guided the path. But without him, she might have been trapped. Without her, he would still be in chains. Perhaps she was right together. It escaped where alone they would have failed. The next day brought their first true test. As they crossed a narrow pass between two cliffs, a group of Drask scouts ambushed them. Arrows of red light hissed through the air. The horse reared, but Tom tightened the reins and pulled left. Guiding it into cover behind a boulder, Nira leaped down, her spear flashing. She fought with deadly grace, cutting down the first two scouts who charged. But more came from above, climbing the rocks with blades drawn. Tom felt the bond surge in him. He guided the horse out from cover, drawing the Drask's attention. Their weapons fired, but the horse moved as if it saw the path before each shot. Tom leaned, pulled, and urged it forward, distracting the enemy so Nira could strike from behind. Together, they broke the ambush, scattering the remaining scouts into retreat. Tom's chest heaved as the fight ended. His hands still trembled, yet he had acted, not frozen. Nira looked at him with rare approval. "You guided well. Without you, I would have been trapped." Tom felt a flush of pride. "We did it together." She gave a small smile, brief but real. "Yes, rider and horsewoman." By the time they reached the edges of Valoran land, Tom's body carried new strength. His legs no longer shook each time he mounted. His hands held the reins with confidence. He could feel the horse's movements before they came, guiding it with thought as much as touch. Yet doubt still followed him. What if the Valorans rejected him? What if they saw only a weak human unfit to stand among them? That night, as they camped near the high cliffs that marked Valoran territory, Tom confessed his fear. "What if I fail when we arrive?" Nira's green eyes met his across the fire. "Then we will show them again and again until they cannot deny what we are. Do not fear their judgment. Fear only your own." Tom held her gaze, and for the first time since his capture, he believed her. The bond had given him more than freedom. It had given him purpose. The next morning, they rode toward the stronghold, the great mountains rising before them. The path ahead would not be easy, but Tom no longer felt like a prisoner. He felt like something new, something he had never thought he could be. He was a rider. The mountains rose like stone giants against the sky. Their peaks glowed white with snow, and their cliffs stretched high above the valleys below. Tom guided the horse carefully along the winding path, Nira seated behind him, with her spear resting across her knees. The air grew colder as they climbed higher, but the sharp chill filled Tom's lungs with energy. He had never seen mountains like these on Earth. They looked endless, as if the sky itself rested upon them. When they reached a high ridge, Tom stopped to catch his breath. From here, the valley below stretched wide. The rivers gleamed like silver ribbons, and the forests burned with green. At the far side, Tom saw stone walls built into the cliffs, tall towers rising above them. Light shone from their tops, glowing with soft blue fire. Nira pointed. "The Valoran stronghold? That's where your people live." She nodded. "It is where we fight, where we train, and where we guard the bond. Today they will see you." Her words filled Tom with both hope and fear. He had trained hard, guided the horse through danger, and even fought beside her. But would her people accept him? They rode down the ridge and across a bridge of stone carved directly into the mountain. At the gates of the stronghold, 2 Valoran guards stepped forward. They wore armor of polished steel with markings across their chest plates, and their long spears glowed faintly. When their eyes fell on Tom, they frowned. "A human," one of them said sharply. "Why bring him here, Nira?" Nira dismounted, standing tall. "He is my rider. The bond is true." The guards exchanged uneasy looks. One shook his head. "Impossible. Only Valorans may ride." Nira's voice carried strength. "The steed chose him. I will not deny it, and neither will you." The guards hesitated, then stepped aside. But Tom saw doubt in their faces as they opened the gates. Inside, the stronghold stretched across the cliffs, with stone halls carved into the mountain itself. Warriors trained in the courtyards, their armored bodies moving in perfect rhythm. Horses of glowing silver and gold galloped through the fields, guided by their riders. Tom could feel the weight of every eye on him as he and Nira passed through. Whispers followed them. Some Valorans looked shocked. Others laughed. A few glared at Tom with anger. Nira ignored them, leading him to a wide hall where the leaders of the stronghold gathered. At the far end stood a tall figure in black and silver armor, with a crown-like helm resting upon his brow. His presence filled the hall with silence. This was the High Commander, the leader of the Valoran host. His green eyes burned sharp as he studied Tom. "Nira," the commander said in a deep voice, "you return with a human. Why?" Nira stepped forward. "Because he is my rider. The bond has chosen him." The hall erupted with voices. Some shouted in disbelief, others in anger. "A human cannot ride. It is a shame to our people."
Yes.
"This is a lie." The commander raised his hand, silencing the hall. His eyes remained fixed on Tom. "You speak of bond. Prove it." Nira nodded. She turned to Tom. "Mount." Tom's chest tightened, but he stepped forward. The horse lowered itself, and Tom climbed onto its back. The warmth of the bond pulsed through him at once. He took the reins, feeling the creature's strength flow into him. The commander gave a single command. "Ride the course." Before Tom lay a training ground marked with obstacles, sharp turns, narrow bridges, and high jumps. Valoran riders had trained on it moments ago, showing flawless control. Now all eyes watched Tom, waiting for him to fail. He swallowed his fear and urged the horse forward. At first his hands shook, but then the rhythm returned. The bond guided him, steady and sure. He pulled left, and the horse swerved smoothly around a sharp turn. He leaned forward, and the horse leapt a high barrier with ease. The wind rushed across his face, and his heart beat with the horse's. The Valoran shouted in surprise as Tom cleared the course. By the time he finished, his chest was burning with breath, but the horse stood tall, unshaken. Nira stepped forward, her voice proud. "The bond is true." The hall grew silent. Even the commander's eyes softened for a moment, though his voice remained stern. "Perhaps, but one course does not prove a rider. A true rider is tested in battle. The Drask move against us even now. If this human is rider, let him show it on the field." Tom's heart froze. Battle. That night, the stronghold prepared for war. The Drask had gathered in the northern passes, seeking to strike at the Valoran supply routes. Nira was chosen to lead a small force to cut them off, and Tom was ordered to ride with her as the warriors readied their armor. Tom sat quietly, staring at the reins in his hands. Doubt gnawed him. He had only just learned to guide the horse. Now he was being asked to ride into war? Nira approached, kneeling beside him. Her green eyes locked on his. You fear this? He nodded. What if I fail? What if someone dies because of me? Her voice grew firm. You will not fail. Not if you trust the bond. Do not carry the weight of every life. Carry only the weight of your choice to ride. The rest will follow. Tom swallowed hard, but her words lit a fire inside him. He thought of the chains he had worn, of the hopeless days in the camp. He was no longer that man. He was rider. When dawn broke, the Valoran force rode out. Their horses thundered across the stone bridge, banners streaming behind them. Tom guided Nira's steed in the middle of the formation, his eyes fixed on the mountains ahead. By midday, they reached the northern pass. The Drask were already there, armored in black, their weapons glowing red. Their numbers were great, and their war cries echoed off the cliffs. The Valorans formed a line, shields and spears ready. Nira raised her spear high, her voice carrying across the field. For bond? For freedom. Tom gripped the reins. His heart pounded, but he felt the bond pulse steady within him. The horse stamped the ground, eager for the charge. The Drask advanced. Arrows of red light filled the air. Tom shouted and pulled right, guiding Nira's horse through the rain of fire. The creature leaped over fallen rocks, weaving between blasts. Behind him, the Valorans followed his lead. Breaking the enemy line with sudden speed, Nira fought like a storm, her spear flashing with silver light. But it was Tom's guidance that carried her into the heart of the battle. He saw openings others missed, paths hidden by chaos, and each time he guided her, she struck with precision. The Drask faltered under the assault. Their commander roared, calling for retreat. The Valorans pressed forward, driving them from the pass. When the field finally fell silent, the Valorans cheered. Nira lowered her spear, turning to Tom. You see now? You are rider not by my word, but by battle's proof. Tom sat breathless, his chest burning with pride. He had guided them to victory. For the first time, the Valorans did not look at him with doubt. They looked with respect that night. As the campfires burned along the pass, Tom stood with Nira at the edge of the cliffs. The stars shone bright above, free and endless. He whispered, almost to himself. I never thought I would be part of something like this. Nira looked at him with steady eyes. You were always part of it. The bond only revealed what was already true. Tom said nothing more, but deep inside, he felt something awaken a strength that had slept for too long. The war march had begun, and he was ready to ride. The dawn came slowly over the battlefield. The air was thick with smoke, and the scent of scorched earth filled Tom's lungs. He sat on the back of the silver horse, Nira, gripping his shoulders lightly, her green eyes scanning the horizon. The Drask had regrouped overnight, and now they marched down the valley in great numbers. Tom's chest pounded. He had ridden into battle before, guided the horse and Nira through chaos, but this was different. The enemy was larger, stronger, and more determined. Every moment would test him. Every choice could change the course of the fight. Nira leaned close. Remember, she said softly, trust the bond. We fight as one. Tom nodded, his hands tightening around the reins. He felt the heartbeat of the horse beneath him, steady and strong. He had learned its rhythm, its power, and its trust. Now that bond would guide them through the storm. The Drask charged. Their war cries echoed off the cliffs, their weapons glowing like molten fire. Tom pulled left, guiding the horse through a narrow pass where the enemy's numbers would count for less. Sparks flew from the hooves as they struck the rocky ground. Nira struck first, her spear cutting down the Drask at the front of the line. Tom leaned with the horse, guiding her strikes, moving as one with her and the creature. He noticed every movement, every angle, and found openings the Valorans had not expected. The battle raged for hours. Arrows hissed past, An energy blast streaked the air. Tom's body ached, his hands blistered, but the bond pulsed in response to his determination. Every maneuver he made saved lives. Every choice he guided kept the Valorans safe. At one moment, the Drask commander leapt onto a high rock, intending to strike Nira from above. Tom saw him, and without thinking, pulled the reins sharply. The horse twisted in mid-stride, leaping onto another rock to intercept the enemy. Nira struck the commander with her spear, sending him sprawling. Tom felt the exhilaration of control, of power, and of partnership. Hours passed, and the Drask began to falter. Their formations broke, their morale shaken by the unexpected coordination between human and horsewoman. Tom guided Nira through a final charge into the center of the enemy lines. Every strike was precise, every maneuver instinctive. The Drask commander. A massive creature with glowing red eyes roared and tried to rally his troops. But Tom anticipated his moves. He guided the horse to flank the commander while Nira struck from above. The enemy fell, and the remaining Drask scattered into the mountains. When the battle ended, silence fell over the valley. The Valorans looked around in disbelief, then erupted in cheers. They gathered around Tom and Nira, their eyes filled with respect and awe. Tom felt exhausted but alive. His chest heaved with the rhythm of the horse, and he realized that he had truly become more than a human. He was a rider. Nira dismounted and placed a hand on his shoulder. "You have proven the bond," she said. Her voice was steady yet carried pride. "Not only to me, but to your people and mine." The Valoran commanders approached. Their eyes, which had doubted him, now shone with recognition. "You have led where we could not," said one of the older warriors. "You have guided the bond with skill and courage." Tom shook his head slightly, still trying to process the enormity of what had happened. "I only did what I had to," he said quietly. "You did more than that," another commander said. "You have changed the course of our history. The bond has never been stronger." The horse nudged him gently, and Tom smiled, feeling its warmth through the reins. Nira stood beside him, silent for a moment, then spoke to the gathered warriors. "This human is my rider," she announced. "He has proven himself not by birth or strength, but by the bond. Let all Valorans remember that courage and will can come from anywhere. Today, we fight as one." The soldiers cheered again, their voices echoing through the mountains. Tom felt a surge of pride unlike anything he had known. He remembered the days in chains, the hopeless nights in the Drask camp, and the despair that had once filled him. Now those days seemed distant, like a shadow of someone he used to be. The High Commander approached. His eyes fixed on Tom. He knelt slightly in acknowledgement. "You are no longer a prisoner," he said. "You are one of us, a symbol of freedom and strength. Your deeds will be remembered among our people and beyond."
Oh.
Tom could barely speak. He felt the weight of what had happened, yet he also felt the lightness of his new life. He had been chosen, tested, and had risen to meet the challenge. The bond had carried him, and in return he had guided it to victory. As the Valorans began to tend to the wounded and repair the damage from the battle, Nira led Tom to a quiet ridge overlooking the valley. The sun was setting, casting golden light over the mountains and rivers. The air was calm now, carrying the scent of earth and pine. "Look at this," she said, gesturing to the valley. "You have saved more than lives today. You have saved hope. And with hope, the Valorans will endure." Tom looked out, feeling a mix of exhaustion and wonder. He had once been a prisoner, beaten and broken. Now he stood among warriors, not as a weak human, but as a rider. He felt the power of the bond, the trust of the horse, the respect of the people who had once doubted him. He turned to Nira. "I still cannot believe it. Me, a rider. And with you," she smiled faintly, her green eyes softening. "You did not ride alone. The bond chose you because you had what others lacked: persistence, courage, and heart. You have more strength than you know."
Ah!
Tom nodded slowly. He felt the weight of her words, and with it, a sense of purpose he had never carried before. For the first time, he did not feel small, weak, or powerless. He was part of something larger, something alive and true, in the days that followed. The stronghold prepared for the next Drask attack, but Tom no longer feared them. He trained further with Nira, learning to anticipate movements in battle, read the land, and guide other riders. The Valorants began to seek his advice, marveling at the way he could coordinate attacks and protect the steed and warrior alike. The legend of the human. Riders spread quickly. Soldiers spoke of him with respect, whispering of the courage and instinct he had shown. Even young Valorans, who had once doubted humans, now watched him with admiration. One evening, as Tom sat beside the river with Nira and the horse grazing nearby, he asked quietly, "Do you think humans can really belong among the Valorans?" Nira looked at him steadily. "They already do," she said. "They only needed one to show the way. You have done that." Tom watched the river, reflecting on everything that had brought him here. From chains and fear to freedom and strength, his life had changed in ways he never imagined. He had been weak, but he had risen. He had been broken, but now he was whole. The horse nudged him gently, out, and he smiled, running his hand along its glowing neck. The bond pulsed under his touch, steady and alive. He realized that it was not just about strength or skill, it was about trust, courage, and the willingness to rise when others expected him to fall. As night fell, stars appeared above the mountains. Tom felt their light on his face and thought of Earth, of the home he had left behind. But he no longer longed for it in fear or regret. Instead, he felt gratitude for the journey, for the bond, and for the chance to be more than he had ever dreamed. He stood, looking at Nira and the horse. "Thank you," he said simply. She nodded. The bond is never about thanks. It is about trust, choice, and action. You have given more than you know. Tom mounted the horse once more, Nira behind him, and together they rode into the night. The valley stretched out below, the stronghold glowing softly in the distance. He felt alive, free, and ready. Chains broken, courage awakened, and a legacy begun. The human rider had proven his worth. The bond was true. And in the light of the moons and stars, Tom knew that this was only the beginning of a story that would endure among the Valorans and beyond. The horse's hooves struck the earth, steady and strong. Nira's grip was firm but gentle. And Tom, once a prisoner, rode forward with a heart full of strength and hope. He was a rider, and he would remain one forever.